Welcome to our course, Beginner's Guide to Electron. This is our capstone project where we take a lot of what we've learned and build an application using all of that knowledge. So what we're going to be doing in this particular module is actually creating a calculator application. Now we're going to take a calculator app that was created using earlier versions of Electron. We're going to update it, but build everything from scratch, and I'll go through and explain why certain functionality is there, how pieces fit together, so we really get a good idea of what's going on in the application. So let's go ahead and get into this module. For our final project, or our capstone project, we're going to create a calculator app in Electron, and we're actually going to be reworking an existing application that's a little bit older and isn't using the latest Electron techniques. So I'm going to show what that application looks like. Okay, so here we are. This is the calculator app. This is on GitHub, and you can see the name here. I won't try to pronounce his name. I'm not sure how you say it. But if we scroll down, we can see a picture, an image of this application. Now ours is not going to be like this. We're going to remove a lot of the coloring, so it's just a simple application. So I mentioned before that some of the code is older and needs to be updated. Now, the app.js is really going to remain intact, but how this is getting started is going to change. So the things we do in our Bootstrap are different from what is done in the main.js for this application. So we're going to be using the latest techniques in order to create this and then do a few modifications so it's got more of a very plain look to it. Okay, so I'm in a folder that we're going to create our application in. I want to go ahead and bring up the integrated terminal and do an npm init and get our package JSON in here and just go through these. All right, and there it is. Now I'm going to create a bootstrap.js and paste in some code for this, so the boilerplate code we always use. All right, so here it is, and there's nothing special going on here. I'll just need to make modifications to file names depending on what I use. So we're going to have an index.html. We're also going to have an index.js. In our package JSON, we need to make some changes. So this is going to be called bootstrap. We're going to put our start, and this is going to be electron.save. Okay, so we really can't do anything at this point. We need a comma here as well because we don't have a view or anything. So this is where we're going to be working, these two files here. And this one right here is where we're going to start. And for this, what we can do is actually just paste in the current view because we can make full use of it. So if we go back over here, and what this is doing also, it's really giving you a few tips on how to take some of these existing applications and put them into the current Electron environment and make use of them, because a lot of these application examples on GitHub, some are kind of old. You can see this is August 5th, 2015, which doesn't really seem like it's old, but there have been changes since then. So the view for the application is this index.html, and what we're going to do is go ahead and copy this up to here and go back to ours, paste that in, and then down here you can see we are going to need Jquery. We're going to need whatever this is. For us, it's going to be called index.js. And if we go through here, you can see there's a lot of references to the various kinds of CSS, which we're going to do some modifications on to get sort of the more plain look of things. Now if we go back and look at this, go back to the root. So just go up here to the top. You can go to calculator, click that. There is a CSS file, this one here, calculator. So what I'm going to do is copy this. And there's quite a few things in here, but we're going to strip out a lot of the coloring. So now we can go back here and we need to create a file. So this was called calculator CSS. And we'll paste that in there. Save. So let's make sure that reference is valid right there. So it's the same folder. We're missing Jquery. We'll need to eventually add it, I believe. All right. And if we go back to our, let's see here, Bootstrap file, we have Electron Reloaded commented out. We are going to want that so we can see these updates as we start applying them. So we're going to do an npm install Electron Reload. See if this will go without any kind of issues. So far, so good. All right. And I think that will be available. Let's look in our package JSON. Okay, so no changes there. But we're going to try and give this a quick run and see where we are at this point. So npm start. All right, let's bring our icon up. Looks like nothing is happening there. So obviously there's some issue. It's not giving us any error output, but I already know that there's some problem going on with it. So we're going to go ahead and stop. Make sure all the references are correct. So we have our bootstrap file here. Index.html is correct. And let's see, so this is referencing this. We can go ahead with this, and also we want to open our Dev Tools so we can check if there are any errors going on. All right, so we're going to give this another try. There we go. Okay, and looks like there is one file not found. Jquery, yes. We're not going to worry about that right now. Let's go ahead and remove the Dev Tools. Let's see what the functionality is like. Okay, so this is what we have. Obviously, no functionality. We're going to do the walkthrough of how it's put together. But what we can do, because we do have this, we can go ahead with our CSS. I'm just going to go ahead. You can see this is stopped now because we have our app quit when the window closes on a Mac. And then over here in our CSS, so we have these different class references, operator, eval. We're going to start taking out some background on those. We don't want to just remove these because then it will create different problems. And we have the hover effect as well. What we can do, should be able to just start this and kind of leave it there. I'm going to remove this and do this. So we'll just come back to it. Actually, we can go ahead and put this over here and then just resize this IDE. So I'll grab up here, move this over, and that should be good. All right, so let's start making a few changes. All right, so the hover that we saw is this right here, where basically you get these purples coming in when you hover over the button. So let's go look at that. Scroll down here. So there's our operator, there's our eval. You can see those background colors. We're going to work on this though one at a time. So what we have here is box shadow. So we are going to remove the shadows and the background coloring on these hovers. I'm going to remove this. Here's another one. So background and box shadow and save. All right, so you can see that refreshed. And if we look now, we don't have that particular color coming in on those. Now we can remove this blue and this red, and basically we should get some plain buttons. So if we go up to here and look at calculator, the background, we're going to leave padding. All right, so we have, you can see these different blues coming in, and that's where it should be that main blue. Save that, and there we go. So that looks good. And then what we can do now, we have screen, which is, we're going to leave it because that's this area up here. And when we click and our numbers are going to appear up here, we want that contrast. All right, so we have these operators over here. We'll go back to our HTML. We have operator, we have eval. So that's where this pink and this yellow is coming from. So we're just going to make a few different changes there. Go look for those. And so here's operator, here's background. That's that white color, but it still has that shadow. So here's eval, where we can remove some of that coloring. Now what we're going to do, we're going to try and remove all of this and see if we can still see our equal, and we can, so that's good. And then we're going to have operator. We're going to remove that, save. Okay, so I think this is okay as far as the buttons go. We still have these shadows, and that's not a big issue. Kind of outlines the button a little bit. But anyway, you can see now how we're kind of attacking this and getting rid of some of the coloring and sort of customizing it a little bit. We're going to go ahead and stop here and pick up in another video where we go ahead and add in the functionality into our index.js. We last left off on our project where we have modified the view here and removed a lot of the coloring. We have the app starting up, but there's no functionality. So when I click on things here, nothing's appearing in this window. So we're going to start adding in the functionality which goes into our index.js. The way this works, it's really sitting on a big loop, and we're going to see that in action a little bit here. So what we're going to do is create a variable called keys, and this is going to be a document query selector all, and we're going to say calculator span and save. So this right here is basically going to get all keys from the document, and we actually need Jquery, so we haven't put that into our node modules yet. So we're going to stop this. We're going to do npm install. We're going to try Jquery. All right, let's see here. Couldn't set selected text. I don't know if that matters. Oh, okay, so here we are. That should be okay. And if we go in here and look, see, scroll down, there's Jquery. And we're going to reference this a little bit different than how they're doing it. So if we go in here, they have this Jquery. We're going to do node modules, and then we have Jquery, and we want this jquery.js. So let's see back up here. There it is. And it's just in the distribution folder, so this should work. We'll find out soon enough though. And we're going to go ahead and start this again. See if we have any errors. No. So earlier, if you recall, we did have that error where Jquery was a missing file. That seems to have been resolved now. So we'll just move this over here, and as functionality comes in, it should reflect in our application. And the semicolon there should be optional, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it. All right, so we have operators next. This is just going to capture the various operators, mathematical operators. So we'll have our plus, and we'll have a minus. We'll have also multiplication and division. We want single quotes. All right. And then next what we're going to do is decimal add, so we can handle cases where there's a decimal. Okay, so now we get into this loop, which is really going to contain all the functionality. So we're going to go ahead and create this to the length of the various keys. So we're going to be basically listening to key events. So you're going to have keys length and I++. Let's see, this should be okay. So we are missing something with our conditional here, which is I. All right, that takes care of that situation. Now we're going to have an array of keys. So from what we created up here, we're going to access various elements. This is setting up their on clicks, which will reference this function here. So from here, we're going to grab the various buttons and various kinds of input. So we're going to do input equals document get, or actually query selection or selector, which will be screen. And then we're going to have var input val, that's going to equal input.enter HTML. And then we'll create another button val, this is going to equal this enter HTML. All right, let's see how this works exactly. If we go back, and I'm going to close this CSS and JSON, just remove some of this stuff. We don't need the bootstrap open either. All right, so we have screen, which is basically this element up here, and there can be numbers in it and operators in it, and then there's of course whatever the user pressed, and then going back into here. So that's what's happening. We're getting the input from whatever the screen had, and this right here just parses. This is the actual input. This is getting the reference to where the input is. This is getting the input. So get input from display box is basically what that is. And then some button was pressed. Which button was pressed? All right, so that handles that situation. Now we're still inside of this big loop. And what we're going to do here is button val equals C. So we're looking now for the clear scenario. And if that happens, we're just going to do enter HTML. We want to actually clear that like that. And then we're going to do decimal add, just basically reinitialize. That's going to equal false. You don't really need comments there, so we're just handling that case. All right, so the next case is going to look for an operator. So else if, actually I can do this here. And we're going to look now for button val equals the equal sign. So they are wanting to perform some sort of operation. They want to get the result. So basically we can say calculate a result. And we're going to hold our result like this. So input val. And then we're going to get the last char. That's going to take equation. And then we're going to access an array. So equation dot length minus 1, last character. All right. Now we're still inside of this particular conditional. Now we get into some regex. And what we're going to be doing is replace all instances of x and the division and the multiplication. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to assign back into equation and do this, equation dot replace. And so this is regex again. And this is just saying basically replace all instances, and we have this. So replace that. And we're going to call replace again, where we're going to do with our division. So this is looking for that symbol. Let's see, we want that. And again, G for replace all with this symbol. So if there's any chance that those symbols got in there, we're replacing them. This is just someone's using an X, or if someone's using this one. We want to use our symbols, which are going to be the slash and the asterisk for those particular operations. All right, then we have another conditional, which we need to go down here. And actually we can do this. All right, and then we're still inside of this else if, and what we're going to do now is call operators dot index of last char greater than -1. So the last character or last char equals dot. And so in this condition, and basically what we're doing is we just want to remove those. So if they're an operator or if they're a decimal, and we're going to call equation and do equation, and we're going to do a replace again, period $, slash, comma, and replace with nothing basically. Then we're going to say if equation and call input enter HTML equals eval equation. So get a result in this case, and then the decimal is going to be decimal add equals false. And that handles that particular chain, which started right here. So that can be rolled up and this can be rolled up. And this is what we have right now. Now this right here is that there's still a few things we're going to have to do to actually get the characters populating into our screen. So we're not quite at that point. You can see if I click anything, nothing's happening at this point. So there's still a little bit more that we need to do, and we're going to do that part in our next video. So we're getting close now. We've got really the basic functionality of the calculator going, and we just need to add in the user interaction to get some population into our screens there. We're going to start adding in some of the final pieces. So we have our conditional here, which is still inside of a loop, and we're going to add our final else to this, which is basically just going to append a key if it's pressed. So I'll do an else here, and let's go ahead and break that up like this. We'll have input dot enter HTML plus equals button value All right, save that. Let's open up this else if here. Let's see if we go back up to the top where we're capturing screen. So input is our screen. So that's basically our display box. And we capture, put that into input val. So just kind of remembering what these are as we go through in here. So then again, where do we actually enter in a result into this box? If you look right here, we can see we're entering the evaluation into this box here. And this is running whenever we have the equal sign pressed. But we also want it to run whenever we don't press the equal sign, which is what this should do. So this, when you press a button, should put that into screen. Remember, input is the display box up here. All right, so if we have 8, then that should go, but you can see nothing's happening there. What we're going to do is stop this and bring up our debug tools, which start automatically now. All right, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see kind of what's going on. So here we are. Cannot read property inner HTML of null HTML span element keys on click. All right, so if we expand this a little bit more, let's see if we can find, it's not giving us too much. So this is on line 9 though of index.js, and if we go up here, this is what it's saying is a problem. All right, so we do have this right here, which should be valid for input, but it's telling us we're not actually getting a reference. So whenever we do this, nothing's happening. And go back to our index.html, make sure screen is there, which it is. And if we highlight over it, we should see screen. And we can see that there. And we know this should be correct because it's all coming from the website. So there's something going on right here. And this right here is screen. Let's go back over here. This is a class. And if we go into our calculator.cs, scroll up and look for screen. So you can see the reference here, dot screen instead of screen. So that's going to play an important part in what's happening here. So if I do that, save, and let's try now. So we start getting some numbers in here. So we have 8 plus 9 equals, and so we have another issue. It's probably the similar issue. Let's see, last character is not defined. That is on 23, and we're going to open up some of this again, which is right here. So last character, looks like we didn't add that. Here it is, so that is not spelled right. Okay, so save and refresh. Let's try 3 plus 3 equals, or actually we should have done 3 plus 3 equals. All right, so that's not working. We're not getting errors. And let's see here. So this is where we are, and our last character, which was this, that ran. So this right here must be running, but the equation is not getting set. And so let's see here. So this is saying if the last character is an operator or if it's a decimal. So this should run according to our logic. If we go back over here, all right, let's do a decimal equals. So it is running if it's a decimal. All right, let's clear it again. 6 plus 6 dot equals, and that is coming off of this right here. So this right here, for some reason, doesn't seem to be working. And our current condition, we enter the decimal, that works, and then we fall into this conditional, which does this. So all of that is working. It's just not working whenever we have our equal sign. And this right here should not have a space. Notice this space right here. I'm going to just do that and see if this makes any kind of difference. So 3 plus 3 equals, no. So it's still not getting an event on that. Clear. Let's do 3 minus 3 equals. All right, let's do our dot. Now let's do equal. Okay. So the standalone is still not working for this. And let's go to last car. So this should be getting our equal. and running this. For some reason that's not happening. And kind of just looking at this, I think the issue is going on right here where this conditional was created, because actually what we want is for this to stand alone. So I'm going to move this over, remove this, and this right here is going to be its own condition. Just put a space there. So this was getting called up in all of this. And this last character, so we were just looking for an operator, and then it was just going to basically do some replacements. We didn't want this to be in that part, so that's why that was not happening. So now let's do a 6 plus 6, and that will equal 12. So there we go. That's functioning fine now. And let's go back to this and do a clear 9 plus 9 equals, and clear that. Let's do 10 divided by 5 equals 2. And then we can do, let's see, I think that's every one of them that we've tried so far, and everything is working at this point. And there's a few things that they've done on here as well, which we haven't done. One is to prevent page jumps. So there's a bit of code down here at the bottom that does something like this: prevent default. And we're not using that because I don't see any kind of page jumps, and that could be a different browser than Chrome that could be causing that. And there's also some code that is added in there for IE 9 plus to handle some of what we're doing here. So it's basically just another scenario for that browser. And if I go out to the website, we can see that. All right, so here's the website. This is where we are inside of our index.js. And if I scroll down, here's that IE code. So this is another else if. And you can see the scenario it's handling here, which is, go back up, this scenario. And it's just the case for IE, basically. So that we haven't added that. I've not added it in there. You can add it if you want, so just kind of copy this and paste it in there and you'll be done with it. But we have everything else in here, and we have a functioning calculator at this point as well. So we've now seen how to create this calculator, and you can see the window here is not doing what we want. We can correct that. So our window is this bigger window that we're getting. I'm just going to go in the Bootstrap, remove the developer tools so we can see that in action. Just close this and start. Yeah, so we're getting this bigger window. We can correct it here. So just using some of the parameters that they were using, they had this width of 325, they had a height of 324, and then there was some max width and min width, and it's the same for height, max height, min height, that was in there. So let's go ahead and start, and we get a properly sized calculator at this point. Now notice the hovering, what's happening. So you can go back with the hovering colors and just change the shade here that it's hovering. Before, the whole button was changing a color, but now it's just the numbers that are changing. So the hovering can be adjusted to fix that as well. But we have the calculator functioning. Everything is working as we expect. And so now we've seen how to really just take an application out of GitHub, break it down, and recreate it from scratch. And I was referencing some of the things that they were doing in this application that are no longer being used, and I'm going to show you real quick where to find that. All right, so here's the browser. I'm going to move this over, go back up here and go to the root, go to their main.js. Okay, so here's some of the things that were going on. They're referencing stuff like this, whereas now we do require Electron, and then I've just got the browser window referenced there as well. There's not much difference, but it's a little bit of difference. And if you don't know what exactly is going on, it can take a while to figure it out. So we just went again with our boilerplate code, and as usual, it works fine. And you can use this for any of your Electron apps as well. It's just called bootstrap.js instead of what is usually main.js. All right, so that concludes our capstone project. Welcome to our course, Beginner's Guide to Electron. I want to summarize what we've covered in this capstone project module. So we have created a calculator application. Now, we used some existing framework from an earlier version of this calculator application and updated it for some of the more recent techniques in Electron. We also saw how to build it from scratch and why certain things go on inside of the application. So certain functionality, why certain files are there. And it really gave us a good overview of how to bring everything together, including the UI, which was a little more advanced than what we've been creating in some of our other applications. So that is a summarization of what we've covered in this module.